Welcome back, fellow coding facilitators. Jared O'Leary here with BootUp. This video I want to talk about guiding coders through figuring out how to solve some of their own problems. So one of the first things that I do is whenever a coder has a question is I ask, have you asked two people for help? So before they even were able to ask me any kind of questions, they had to ask two peers for assistance. So that way they learn how to collaborate and work cooperatively and whatnot, especially in case I wasn't there, if there's a substitute, like if I was at a conference or something. So one of the things that I would do once they have asked two people is I would start with open-ended questions like, what are you trying to do in your code that you're unable to do? So then they'd kind of like think through some things, and I'd ask some more open-ended questions to see if I could get them to figure some things out. Now, if that doesn't work, I then start going from like these broad questions to more focused and narrow questions. So for instance, are there any step-by-step guides that might be able to help you through this? So give them some time to look through it and go, no, I'm not really doing anything like this. So then I say, okay, well, what about some of the how-to guides? So are you creating a game? If so, click on that and then see if any of these topics might be able to help you out. And have them go through whichever section that they're getting to. Oh, and by the way, to bring this up, all you have to do is click on this question mark or click where it says tips, and that'll pop up all of this stuff that's on here. Anyways, so if those don't work and coders are still stuck, then I'll ask even more direct guiding questions. Like, for instance, if they're trying to figure out something with code, like to make it so that their sprite turns in a specific direction, I'll be like, okay, what kind of type of block do you think you're going to look for? Does this have anything to do with motion, or is it changing the way it looks, or are we looking at the sounds? So just kind of like naming off these names of all the stuff that's right here. And so if it was the turning thing, example, they might be like, oh, well, it has to do with turning, so it's motion. So I'd have them click on that and then ask them, okay, which of these blocks do you think might have something to do with that, or might be able to do what you're trying to do? So I'd give them some time to think through it and remind them, hey, if you don't know what the block does, you can click on this and then click on a block and it'll tell you, etc. So some more guided questions with that. And then if they're still not getting it, then I'll ask a more direct question. Be like, okay, so here are two options. You want to make a turn. Now, which one do you think it's going to be? Is it going to be turn to the right or turn to the left? So when I've observed some other coding facilitators, there's a tendency to start with those closed or direct questions that have a right and wrong answer. But what I'd really recommend doing is starting with the broader open-ended stuff and slowly narrowing down to a very focused question that has a right or wrong answer. And the reason why is because you want them to think through the processes of how to figure out some stuff on their own. So that way they're not constantly like, hey, how do I do this? Hey, how do I do this? But they can go home and be like, okay, I wanted to do something that has to do with moving, so I'm going to need motion blocks. And I don't remember what these blocks do, so they'll know how to figure it out by clicking on that and then clicking on it. So again, start very broad and then narrow it down to something smaller for questions, but I would highly recommend encouraging peer-to-peer assistance. Oh, and sometimes whenever a coder would ask me a question and I knew somebody else had already worked through that, I'd actually be like, oh, you know what? Susie over there is really good at knowing how to do that. How about you ask her? She can help you with that. So there's one more suggestion on how to help out some coders who might have some questions.